Okay, hey everyone. I know you've been waiting, you've been on pins and needles, trying to figure out what the next independent novel book project will be. And so with the first one, it was an essay. This one, we've actually decided that you guys are going to be creating book trailers. So think of like the movie trailers, right? Think of the commercials that you see on TV, advertising some sort of, movie that's coming out. Well, you're going to be creating a commercial or a trailer for your book, right? Trying to sell it, make someone else want to read it, and capture the story and some of the themes that are in your book in a visual format. So I figured, since you're going to be creating videos in a sense, I thought I'd go over some film elements. Again, this is just a brief introduction, so think of it like Film 101. I know that everyone's at a different spot, right? Maybe some people are able to make videos and maybe they make them on their own free time, almost as a hobby. And then other people really have no clue what they're doing, and this would be the first time you've ever made a video, and that's fine. We're going to be having some time in class to work on this, but I figured I would have you guys watch this presentation first so that you come to class already knowing the concepts, and then we can start from there. So sort of speeding up the process a little bit. So if you could please watch this presentation and again, record like any questions that you might have so that I can, explain it in class tomorrow. So with some film elements, I'm going to go over some things that I think are important and some other things that will help maybe you to take this project to the next level. So the first concept that I'm going to talk about is called mise en scène. It's actually a French term, and it literally means, like the translation is putting into the scene. So think of anything that's within the story world. If you look at the screen, I like to think of it as if you pause the video, everything that you see on that screen is contributing to what the term mise en scène means. So it signifies really the director's control over everything that appears in the frame. So the four elements of mise en scène: setting, lighting, costumes and props, and then the behavior of the figures. So again, when you go to create your videos, whether you just choose, still images almost to create a PowerPoint presentation, or if you want to actually film it and to make a video, then you should be thinking about all of this stuff. So I have 3 still frames from different movies, and I figured, okay, we'll use this as an example as a way to look at mise en scène. So I'll model this first. I'll talk about what I notice in this still frame, and then I'll have you take a look at 2 other ones. So what do I notice about the mise en scène in this frame? First off, this is from a 1920 movie called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It's actually a really famous movie from the German Expressionism movement. So when I'm looking at this, right, I want to think about the setting, I want to think about lighting, the costume and props, and then the behavior of the figures or the actors. Right off the bat, I noticed that if we're looking at the setting, it looks really unrealistic, right? I don't know any architect who would create structures like this. They're probably not even structurally sound. Everything is kind of askew and at angles, and you see a lot of harsh lighting, right, playing off these shadows. With the costume and the props, I see 4 figures in black, and then this woman stands out, and I'm looking at her outfit, and she has some sort of other, at least gradients instead of just black. And also it almost looks like it, in a sense, is going along with the setting as a whole, right? You have all of these jagged lines, and we also have jagged lines and patterns on her clothing. And then the behavior of the figures. It looks to me like these 2 probably don't know her, right? I guess you could greet your friends like that, but it looks more formal. It looks like she's presenting herself for the first time to these people, or at least to him. She's shaking his hand. And then we have these 2 strange people in the background. So what I asked you to do is, again, how does it create an overall tone? Right off the bat, in my mind, this is very eerie. It's frightening. It's unsettling. Taken all together. I probably wouldn't want to frame this and put it on my wall. It just kind of, I don't know, it's scary. How does it contribute to a sense of realism or surrealism? This is definitely surreal, right? It's illogical, it's irrational, it's unrealistic. This doesn't look like something that I walk out the door and I see typically. So it's very unrealistic. It's almost surreal. And how can I make predictions as to what's taking place in this frame? Well, just in my mind, it almost looks like this woman is meeting with these people in a place that's unfamiliar to her, just in my mind, because she stands out, right? She's not like these other four. She's meeting someone she doesn't know. So does she need something from him? Is she just walking around randomly and she's lost, perhaps? And then I noticed like these lights, right? These are like the only source of light. It looks like it could be even at night. And the light is near her head. And then they also have a light by these two people. So are these strangers or are they maybe connected, right? I'm almost picturing she's meeting this person, but she needs some sort of protection, but it has to be secretive. So maybe these people are hanging off in the background, kind of keeping an eye on her, keeping her safe, but so that these two people, or at least this guy, doesn't know who these two people are and that they're even connected with her. It's just a prediction based on all of the mise en scène that I see and that the director is using in this frame. So what I would like you to do is to take a look at these two frames. This one is from the movie Contempt. It's a French film. So take a look at it. I know it's very simple, very different than this last one, but look at the mise en scène, think about setting, think about lighting, costumes and props, and then the behavior of the figures. How does it create an overall tone? Does it contribute to a sense of realism or surrealism? And can you make any predictions as to maybe what's going on in the scene? And again, this one is from Groundhog Day. Great film from 93. So again, take a look at it and think about some of the choices that the director made in establishing this mise en scène. So at this point, I would ask you to pause the video and just think about it. We'll talk about this in class then the next day that we get a chance to talk about this then. Okay, so when it comes to mise en scène, that's everything that the director puts into the frame. Now we have to think about how the shot is framed, right? This is the way that the camera is actually positioned, and it captures the events that are going on in the story. So with framing, there's different camera frames that we can do. There's a long shot where we have the full actor's body, right? We want to see the whole actor's body interacting in the setting. We have a medium shot from about the waist up, and then we have a close-up, typically just the head, or maybe starting with the shoulders and getting the entire head. So, think about the different reasons why you might want to frame a shot this way. We can go over this in class, but I'd like you to at least have some ideas as to why you might want to use a long shot, a medium shot, or a close-up. To continue with framing, then there's an extreme long shot. So beyond just showing the body, we're also getting the scene. So we can't really see who those people are. That's why it's an extreme long shot. And then we have an extreme close-up. So it might be focused on just one aspect of the body, eyes, lips maybe, or even just one object, right? I can picture a key unlocking a door, focusing just on that key and nothing else. That's an extreme close-up. So again, think about why might you want to use a long shot or an extreme long shot? Why might you want to use an extreme close-up? So beyond just frames, now you have to think about the angle at which you put the camera, or at least the angle at which it captures the image. There's low angle, high angle, and eye level. So low angle is when the camera is actually below the subject that it's shooting. High angle, completely opposite. It's above the subject. Eye level, a little bit more natural. We're looking right at the eyes or right on level with whatever the subject is. So again, think about why might you want to use a low angle? What is this shot doing to the viewer? What about the high angle? Why would you want to use a high angle? Again, come to class with those ideas in mind, and we'll talk about the different purposes of these different angles. Another angle, it's called a Dutch angle. This is from the movie Inception, if you've ever seen that. So look at it. It's a little bit askew. It's not just shooting it on level. It's tilting the camera literally. So it looks like everything is slanted to one side. Dutch, it actually comes from the word Deutsch. So it was actually stemmed from the German Expressionism movement, which was earlier. I'll go back to that original image. So this German Expressionism films use a lot of Dutch angles, and they, coined the term Dutch angles. So just look at that. How often do you see those in movies and in TV and in commercials? And why might you want to use that angle? Now, you can actually move the camera. So not just thinking about the way that it's framed and the angle at which it captures the subject, but also the movement itself. So if you kept the camera at one position, and even on a tripod in these pictures, you can move it back and forth, like left and right, and that would be called panning. So that's a pan. Whenever you watch a subject walk across the screen and the camera keeps the subject right in the middle of the frame, that would be panning. Tilting is just a vertical movement up and down, but keeping, again, the camera in the same position. Tilting up a skyscraper, going all the way up to the top, or tilting down, following an elevator, moving down a few floors. So again, think about why you might want to use a pan, why you might want to use a tilt, and their different purposes. There is a zoom, and this is an unnatural thing. Like, our eyes don't zoom, but cameras do, and there might be a reason to do it. So assuming that many of you are familiar with the dramatic chipmunk, right? So you have that zoom in on the little chipmunk's head. Oops. What is that doing in the shot? It's such a quick zoom. If you've ever seen like the old Batman movies or the TV show, they have all these quick zooms in and out. There's a final camera movement, and it's actually moving the camera. So in all these other movements, you haven't actually been taking the camera and moving it through time and space, but there's something called a dolly and a track. So they're kind of synonymous. And that's where you literally take the camera and move it through space. This is a very famous movie called Russian Ark. And what makes this film so interesting, it's actually one shot. It's a 96-minute shot. So there's no cuts. So obviously, to make this movie interesting and to change locations, they had to move the camera around. So you can see it's this slow dolly, this slow track through the whole setting. And it's very smooth because it's actually a Steadicam operator. So even just this 9-minute clip is just one shot moving through this dance floor. So again, why would you want to move the camera? Why would you want to dolly or track it around the setting? Okay. Now that we thought about the camera and we thought about, again, the mise-en-scène, just everything that goes into the scene, now you're going to want to think about sound, right? Your book trailers are going to want to have some sort of either sound or music or maybe both. So 2 more terms to kind of add to your background knowledge. There's this word diegetic, and then non-diegetic is the opposite. Diegetic sound is just everything that's within the story world. Anything that actually creates sound within the story would be considered diegetic. So if we watch this clip from Shawshank Redemption, all of those rocks are making sound, diegetic. The birds in the background, diegetic. If the actor, right, Morgan Freeman, were to speak, that's diegetic sound. Now he ends up finding a letter. He's going to read the letter. And you'll notice that there's a different voice on the screen.
Dear Ed, if you're reading this, you've gotten out. And if you've come this far, maybe you're willing to come a little further.
He's not producing that sound. The letter itself isn't producing the sound. It's what he's hearing in his head almost. That would be non-diegetic sound.
Look at my project on wheels. I'll keep an eye out for you. And a chessboard ready. Remember, Red, hope is a good thing.
And then later on,
Maybe the best of things.
Morgan Freeman's character has a little bit of an inner monologue.
I'm guilty of committing a crime. A rule violation. Of course, I doubt they'll toss up any roadblocks for that. Not for an old crook like me.
Okay, so right there, Morgan Freeman's voice is both diegetic and non-diegetic, right? The inner monologue is diegetic. It's outside of the story world. It's not really existing within that world. And then when he asks for the ticket to Fort Hancock, we have diegetic sound now. Now there's actually this, there's this famous sound that Jaws uses. And I'm not really going to call it like music. It's almost to establish some sort of like mood and to heighten the anxiety of a certain scene. So whenever the shark makes an appearance, the movie uses this music to kind of create tension. And this is a perfect example of non-diegetic sound, right? It's not like in the water we have an orchestra playing this music. It's non-diegetic. So you can see that the pace of the music picked up, the intensity of the music picked up, and as the viewer, we were supposed to feel more intense, more anxiety about that scene. Now, there's this movie called Stranger Than Fiction, and they actually play a little bit on the idea of the voiceover. So you guys might want to use a voiceover in your book trailers. Here's a kind of play on it.
If one had asked Harold, he would have said that this particular Wednesday was exactly like all the Wednesdays prior. And he began it the same way he always did.
Hello?
He began it the same way he always did. When others' minds would...
Hello? Someone there?
When others' minds would fantasize about their upcoming day or even try to grip onto the final moments of their dreams, Harold just counted brush strokes.
All right, who just said Harold just counted brushstrokes?
Okay, so you can see that the director is kind of playing with that idea of like diegetic versus non-diegetic. So in the beginning, we think that it's outside the story world, but we soon realize that Harold can actually hear this woman's voice. So it automatically then switches. It becomes diegetic sound. It's within the story world. Okay, really the last concept that I'm going to talk about is just the idea of editing. I don't expect you guys to be like Steven Spielberg, where you're able to put these in, big productions together. I know that not everyone has experience in editing, but, you're going to use a pretty basic editing software or whatever you choose to do. And just by putting two, clips together or two images together, that is editing. So you're going to want to think about some of the clips that you do put together, because when you put two different clips together, sometimes they take on a whole new meaning. So as a way to kind of elaborate on that concept, I'm going to talk about what's called the Kuleshov effect. There was actually this guy, his name was Lev Kuleshov. He was a Russian filmmaker, and he studied a lot about just the idea of editing and psychology, specifically the way that viewers will interpret certain images when they're put together. So he looked at the juxtaposition of one shot with another. And we talk about the idea of juxtaposition, right? Putting two dissimilar things together, and it creates a new meaning. So what he did was he took a very neutral shot of just a person. So we can see in the left-hand column, we have this face. This person doesn't look happy. He doesn't look sad, doesn't look really anything. It's just very neutral, kind of like a static shot. But then he edited it with another shot. And by adding another shot to the original, people were able to tell him like, oh, this person was this emotion. So when they watched this guy then clip to this little doll, almost it looks like a coffin, and then switch back to him, they said, oh, he was sad. Other people saw the same guy, different clip next to it, so added a bowl of soup and a drink, cut back to this guy, and they said, oh, he's hungry. That's an emotion of hunger right there. Other people saw him cut with a woman laying on a couch and then cut back to him, and they said, oh, that video clip shows a lustful man. Same image, same facial expression, but different clip added to it, and they all interpreted this guy's face as showing a different emotion. So that's kind of interesting because, again, when you're putting these videos together, you want to think about the different clips that you do put side by side. So just to kind of, I don't want to belabor the point, but here's another example of the Kuleshov effect. So we have this old man, and we have two different clips. We have one where he's just kind of staring, and then another where he's smiling. So if you were to edit these clips together, and so at first you see this old man standing still, cut to an old lady with a baby, cut back to the old man, he's smiling. People will interpret that clip as showing a very nice old man. Oh, he's very nice. He's watching this woman playing with her child, and he's gaining pleasure from that. Now, if you watch a totally different sequence, first you see the old man, then you see some attractive woman in a bathing suit laying in the grass, and then you cut back to the old man smiling, all of a sudden your interpretation is different. Oh, he's a dirty old man. He's a creepy old man, right? Gaining pleasure from watching some stranger. So when you do create these book trailers, again, we're going to talk about these concepts in class. I'll sort of review a little bit, and then you'll have some time to actually brainstorm what your book trailer will look like. Now, again, ultimately you're creating a video, so you might ask, like, what should I create my book trailer with? And I know that everyone is at different points. Maybe some of you could use a phone. You all have a Chromebook, which has a camera on it. So at the least, you could use that to film yourself. A lot of digital cameras have video editing capabilities, and really anything that you can find will work, because what you can do is film yourself. You can either email the clips to yourself, or again, it would be on your Chromebook anyways. Now, when it comes to editing, I know that some of you used WeVideo in the beginning of the year when you were creating those poetry, get to know me poetry projects. If you did use WeVideo, you should use that again if you feel confident with it and you feel comfortable using it. I'm going to be doing like a little mini lesson on just how to set up WeVideo later this week and just talk to you guys about how to use it a little bit better. But it's very self-explanatory. It's very intuitive. And I think it's probably the best option that I would kind of push you guys to use. If you have another idea, if you maybe use other video editing software and you want to use that, go for it. That's fine. Again, you're just going to be uploading these to YouTube because you all have YouTube accounts, and that's how I'll get your videos. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you for watching it. And again, we'll talk about this in class. So bring your questions to class. We'll look at some of those clips and we'll just review, and then you'll have time to actually start brainstorming and maybe even recording and editing your videos in class. Okay? See you guys.